This is Kite Cutter TV with another presentation. We gotta talk about this. Okay, guys, two more states, Pennsylvania and Indiana, are in the process of giving illegal aliens driver's licenses. Now, you're gonna hear the same excuses we hear all the time. People need to get to work, people need to get to school, people need to get to the grocery store. What about public transportation? What about ride sharing? First of all, you're not even supposed to be in the country in the first place, but when you incentivize people that are in the country illegally to get benefits, you're just going to open the door for more illegal aliens to cross the border illegally and come into the country and use up the benefits. Now, most U.S. citizens are getting very irritated with this because it seems that the Democrats and the left are giving more love to illegal immigrants than actually legal immigrants and citizens. So if you live in Pennsylvania or Indiana, I suggest to contact your local authorities, the relevant officials, to let them know how you feel about this. Because the amount of stories that I've showed throughout the years that show illegal aliens driving without a license and getting in accidents, causing crashes, drinking and driving, killing citizens and legal immigrants and just regular civilians on the road is just, I can't even count it. Like, if you guys go back, I mean, I've had to delete a lot of videos because of YouTube, and even at the moment I'm demonetized right now, so I'm doing all these videos out of love, trying to get back in the good grace of YouTube. But if you go back, you'll see so many videos that I've done that this has happened. And now the audacity for these states to be giving illegal aliens driver's licenses, and it happens incrementally. Okay, this is how the deception happens. It happens slowly, state by state. Now, if something happened all at once, then you would get a lot more pushback. But because things happen in increment, these people are getting away with this. Also, another thing that's happening, you got these illegal immigrant advocates saying that the Border Patrol is actually leaving people out in the desert to die. These illegals that cross the border illegally, they're saying that Border Patrol doesn't go out there and get them. And this is what irritates me, because I've shown so many times that Border Patrol has gone out and rescued these aliens that get lost in the desert, that don't have water, don't have food. And they actually set up a lot of these beacons where if you get lost out there in certain areas, you'll have beacons where you can hit the button and you can have Border Patrol come pick you up. But this is what the left does. They don't blame the people that deserves to get blamed. The person that deserves to get blamed, and the primary point that we need to start the conversation, is crossing the border illegally. You can't skip that and just blame Border Patrol for these illegal aliens that died in the desert. Okay, so we got that and a lot more immigration topics to get into. Check this out.
As long as they are of driving age and pass the required driving tests, a group of state lawmakers believes that all Pennsylvanians, regardless of immigration status, should be able to get a driver's license. And they have submitted this bill because undocumented immigrants in Pennsylvania have not been eligible to get a driver's license since 2002. And advocates argue that licenses are essential for helping people of any status go to the store, go to the doctor, school, or work. They say that changing this law to include undocumented immigrants getting licenses would actually make everyone on the road safer, because that way you would know that all those who are driving are legally allowed to do so. This group of lawmakers is in the State House of Representatives, mainly Democrats, but there is one Republican who has signed on to this. Later this morning, they will be having a virtual rally to talk about their bill proposal.
We're standing in front of CASA on East Princess Street in York. It is one of 18 grassroots organizations in Pennsylvania that are hoping to expand access to driver licenses. CASA State Director Thais Carrero says undocumented immigrants should be able to get a driver's license. But she says they can't because they don't have a social security number and they are not legally registered. She is hoping House Bill 279, now before a State House committee, will give undocumented immigrants the legal right to get behind the wheel of a car.
It's about folks being able to move around, have a meaningful job, be able to take care of themselves and their families. So we just continue pushing until we get this legislation passed.
York County has nearly 17,000 undocumented immigrants, about 5,000 in York City. This is the fourth time there has been an attempt to pass this bill in the state legislature. In York, Ed Weinstock, WGAL News 8.
Also new tonight, some lawmakers are pushing to get legislation passed that would allow undocumented immigrants to legally drive here in Indiana. News 8's Camila Fernandez spoke with legislators and immigrants and has more.
Under two bills at the Indiana State House, driving cards would be available to undocumented immigrants living in Indiana. Some legislators say these driving cards would make a positive impact in the state. Many immigrants in Indiana are pushing for House Bill 1138 and Senate Bill 319 to get passed. Right now, under Indiana law, undocumented immigrants are not allowed a driver's license. Legislators say that driving cards are an alternative, showing proof of driving qualifications. They would also allow the holder to get insurance. Author of House Bill 1138, Representative Chris Campbell, tells News 8 this is a step in the right direction to making sure people are safer while out on the road.
They're on the road, they're driving without a driver's license. That means that they may not have insurance on their vehicle, but they also have not passed a driver's test.
Wendy Catalan Ruano came from Mexico with her parents more than 15 years ago. The 23-year-old is the oldest of 5 siblings, and she's already faced a host of challenges.
My mom is undocumented, and my dad in 2018 was deported under the same circumstances of not having a driver's license.
Ruanu says the driving cards are a form of protection for many immigrants, including her mom.
Now that it's just my siblings and I with my mom, we have to be a lot more careful, because I know that if something were to happen to her in regards to, going to jail or being apprehended by ICE, I would be the one fully in charge of my siblings.
She says her mom is a hard worker and that a driving card would allow her mom to identify herself and provide some relief.
We just want to know that my mom is safe. So if we were to move away, we know that she'd be okay.
Lawmakers say the driving cards would not allow carriers to vote, nor would they provide a pathway to citizenship. There are only a few states such as California and Nevada that offer driver's license to drivers whether or not they are undocumented. I'm told the idea has been introduced more than 7 times, and we'll also have more information about the bills on our website. Camila Fernandez, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
Breaking tonight, during his first major foreign policy address at the State Department today, President Biden says he will seek to raise the annual refugee cap to 125,000 in his first year in office, up from 15,000 set by the Trump administration. Meantime, on the U.S.-Mexico border, some facilities are at capacity tonight due to a steady increase in border encounters since April 2020 and also COVID restrictions. Some migrants are now being provided a notice to appear and released into the U.S. to await a hearing, what critics call catch and release. National correspondent William Lajeunesse has specifics tonight from Los Angeles. William?
Well, Brett, Customs and Border Protection says because of that steady increase in apprehensions, Mexico's reluctance to accept more deported families and COVID restrictions here, some facilities are at maximum safe capacity. Therefore, it says, per long-standing practice, when long-term solutions are not possible, some migrants will be processed for removal, provided a notice to appear, and released into the U.S. to await a future immigration hearing. Now, this is needed, they say, to avoid keeping migrants beyond what court orders allow. So right now, the Border Patrol is stopping some 3,500 migrants per day trying to enter the U.S. Former DHS Director Chad Wolf calls it a perfect storm, likely to get worse as smugglers and families exploit the situation.
It's a significant development that they're not taking certain family units back under Title 42. That's very concerning, because if you're just doing that in 1 or 2 sectors, it's likely going to manifest itself across that border in the very near future.
So right now, this catch and release is only happening in parts of Texas with some families with kids under 12, but especially in sectors with large increases in unaccompanied children apprehensions, like Big Bend, up 98%, 55% in the Rio Grande Valley, which apprehended roughly 7,000 children in just the last 4 months, forcing the administration to add beds in Donna, Texas, and Carrizo Springs, which last saw large numbers in 2019. As for those released, the new DHS director says all migrants will be treated fairly.
Those who qualify under those laws are entitled to the relief that we extend. Those who do not will not be able to remain in our country.
So unlike those arriving overseas by airplane, say, those released have not been tested by COVID or for COVID by CBP unless they show symptoms. Concerned border mayors have asked for and received thousands of test kits from the state. Brett.
William Lachinesse live in L.A. William, thanks.
Virginia's 5th District Congressman Bob Good says he hopes to see some of former President Donald Trump's immigration plans continue. Good was one of several congressmen who recently took a trip to view conditions at the border wall in southern Arizona. He says immigration is one of his top priorities in Washington.
I think we need to protect our borders, but the wall is 90-something% effective. It makes a huge difference. And meeting with the Border Patrol agents and the local law enforcement in counties like Cochise County, right there on the border, that have to deal with the illegal immigrant situation.
Good also spoke strongly against President Biden's immigration plans. He hopes to see the border wall completed in the near future.
And happening regionally, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has terminated an unusual agreement that Arizona's top prosecutors signed with the agency in the waning days of the Trump administration that would restrict President Biden's ability to overhaul his predecessor's immigration policies. Now, the action was revealed Wednesday as Arizona's Republican Attorney General sued to stop the newly confirmed Homeland Security Secretary from carrying out the Democratic president's 100-day moratorium on deportations. Now, a federal judge in Texas has already put it on hold, and the action comes the same week a whistleblower complaint revealed a top DHS official under Trump reached last-minute agreements with the Union for Immigration Employees.
President Biden signs 3 executive orders on immigration with the goal of reversing policies put in place by the Trump administration. Reporter Brandon Evans breaks down those orders and shows us why some believe change is still not close at hand. It's a story you'll see only on 7.
It's impossible to understand immigration without knowing what's happening at our border. That's why I spoke to a woman who works directly with families in Juarez. Lindy Morrison is the founder of the nonprofit Seguimos Adelante. She talked about learning executive orders were coming down on immigration.
That's something that has given us hope. It's given the asylum seekers that we work with hope.
President Biden's executive order set up a task force to try and reunite children separated from their families and calls for a review of Trump administration immigration policies. But for Morrison, that's too little and still too far away.
I think a lot of us were expecting maybe something a little bit more concrete to be announced, specifically in regard to the migrant protection protocols.
The MPP deals with asylum seekers that came here but were sent back to Mexico to wait until their court date.
Hearing that the announcement was more that they're going to be reviewing policies and that next steps are still, we're going to wait a little bit longer, that was difficult just because we then have to go tell people that.
She says some of those families feel the only way to save their child is to send them across the border alone.
That's something that we've seen a lot recently because conditions in Mexico are so horrible or such terrible things have happened to them there that for those parents, the choice to send their child, to willingly separate themselves from their child, that is the better option.
She says she has even seen cases where a family member waiting at the border in Mexico was kidnapped before their court date arrived. Reporting it only on 7, I'm Brandon Evans.
The latest national estimates show there are still 600 to 700 migrant children separated from their family.
2 migrant advocacy groups are accusing the Border Patrol of leaving immigrants to die in the desert without trying to save them. Authorities say they've devoted to finding lost illegal immigrants, but as KOLD News 13's Joanna Guzman reports, research from those groups show otherwise.
Disappearance and death were really common outcomes in at least a third of the time that Border Patrol refused to take action.
A recent report from migrant organizations No More Deaths and Derechos Humanos attributes these deaths to law enforcement. It makes very serious claims of neglect towards migrants in distress.
Where Border Patrol intentionally funnels migrating people into the most remote and dangerous terrain, intentionally endangering their lives.
No More Deaths member Parker Deegan says they analyzed 2,000 crisis hotline calls and nearly 500 cases involving missing migrants. Their report shows 40% of the time, Border Patrol didn't respond to emergency search and rescue requests.
Instead, we find that abandoning people to die in the remote desert is consistent with Border Patrol's strategy of enforcing the border border through a method of deterrence by death.
The report also states BP search efforts last less than an hour and claims they prevent other organizations and family members to search themselves for their loved ones.
We witness daily in our work in the desert, including the practice of chase and scatter, where they chase groups of migrating people, causing them to become lost and injured, and interference with life-saving humanitarian aid, including the intentional destruction of water gallons that are left on remote migrant trails.
The groups are asking for new immigration policies at a federal, state, and local level, calling the current ones inhumane. We reached out to CBP this morning to set up an interview to respond. We also contacted them again by email following the release of the report, asking them to respond to the allegations. In both cases, CBP would only provide a written statement saying, quote, CBP remains committed to humanely securing the southern border of the United States and devotes the totality of its force to finding lost or injured individuals while also balancing the border security mission with which they are charged. In Tucson, Joanna Guzman, KLD News 13.
The two groups filed a complaint to move forward with litigation, forcing the Border Patrol to release data.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Till next time, God bless. Peace.